So we're jumping into Pathfinder, the adventure card game, with a couple of solo ideas, taking that solo quest, that solo hero, whether you're going to look at playing digital or playing analog. And in this vlog, we're going to start with one of my favorite characters, Ezren. And we're going to build a checklist of points to keep in mind as we navigate through the adventure paths. Now, in this vlog and in this upcoming series, and all of them, I'm not going to be giving away any spoilers. I'm not going to be talking about specific gear because so much of the game is acquiring gear, leveling up, discovering certain artifacts, discovering certain adventure points. I do not want to pull that away from you. So much of the game and the replayability is that I want to maintain that integrity. But we are going to be talking about certain action points, and we are going to be talking about certain types of gears, items, and followers and blessings. So no spoilers, but we're going to jump in with that terminology. Okay, weaknesses versus strengths, building the checklist. We're playing solo. We're playing one character, and that changes a lot. The game wants to play it around 3 or 4 characters. I've played it with 6 to 8. I mean, we've broken the rules. But as soon as we jump down to 1, it is vastly different than even playing 2. It is vastly different. So jumping in with one hero, one character, there are some points to keep in mind. Okay, with Ezren, we have vulnerabilities in that he is spell-based. And this is both I was going to say a blessing and a curse. This is both good and bad. Spell-based is challenging because there are not many locations that regularly drop spells. When you're building the decks of locations, sometimes there's only 1 or 2 of an object, sometimes there's 0, sometimes there's a few. A great example would be the Academy. It's going to drop multiple spells. So if you're playing Ezren in a group of 2 or 3 characters where the Academy is now unlocked because the location scale, the more you bring in, first thing Ezren does is he goes there and he farms that. And even if you encounter a minion, a bandit, first or second draw, you don't close the location. You want to go through the whole thing because Ezren needs those spells. It's his favored type. It has the most attributes. You can carry the most. He's arcane. I mean, he's a wizard. So we want to get those spells. As soon as you play solo, those points don't always unlock. They don't always unlock. So now what this means is the locations that do have 1 or 2 spells, you need to encounter those spells. So it's going to be a little bit challenging and slow building getting those spells, and his primary attack type is spells. That's something to keep in mind. On the flip side, the spells are not just attack-based. If we look at another favorite character of mine, Valeros, his ability, of course, is weapons, is fighting. And weapons are very one-dimensional. I don't mean that in a negative way. But you have a sword, you have a polearm, you have a dog chopper, whatever it's going to be, and the damage that they do is then augmented by shock or magic or frost, or fire, some sort of ability on that. But it's combat only, except for 1 or 2 exceptions, combat only. Ezren with his spells, they are mainly combat. You're going to be doing force missiles, you're going to be doing frost ray, you're going to be doing all that, but there are also other ways of invisibility. There's web, there's mirror image, there's abilities and spells that are going to be able to be utilized throughout the entire game. So they are extremely, extremely powerful. You just need to literally build up that spell book. So how we get around that? The bonus of playing, the advantage of playing solo, and this is true of any character, you are not limited to the timer. We don't have to worry about spending blessings or spending followers to make an extra move without drawing from the timer. We still want to play with the timer because that's fair for the game. But since we're not limited to that because we can pretty much explore all 3 locations, this means now with Ezren, if I go to a location, and this is not advanced knowledge, you're allowed to do this, you're allowed to know the composition of the cards that you're going to encounter. When you get there, what we want to do is look and say, okay, there's a spell in here. I'm not going to close this location until I encounter the spell. So in the first, second, third draw, if I encounter the spell, good. As soon as I get the henchman out of the way, then I can close. Great. if I draw the henchman 1, 2, or 3 cards in and I haven't gotten that spell yet, I want to go through the entire deck. So we want to farm and be really aggressive and look, where are the spells? Second vulnerability, and this is hard to mitigate. There are a couple of items that can do it that you will acquire or encounter. It's a little bit of a buffer, but this is where things get challenging with Ezren. And then we'll look at how to circumvent this challenge. Your deck size, your hand size is big. You're very, very squishy. What this means is that you do, yes, get to draw a variety of cards and have a variety of possibilities in front of you. I mean, you're a wizard. You've got that. But the downside is when you get hit from a bad roll, and we're going to look about augmenting rolls and literally rolling the dice and trying to control and influence it. But you need, a 13 to pass, and you've got a +4 to your arcane, and you roll a 1, and you fail, or multiple dice fail, and now you take 6, 7 hits. Other characters that their hand size is 4 or 5, I don't want to take any hits, but I can come back from that. You take a major, major hit, you lose that hand size, you're either going to die next hand size because you don't have enough cards to pull out, or you've been weakened so much you really can't finish the current adventure. That's just a challenge. We're going to try and mitigate it with certain items that act as armor, or certain pieces of armor that are not armor. You could, as you level up, put a pip in armor type. You could do that, but then you'll be banishing because you're not trained in it. That's a possibility. There are some ways to mitigate it, but that is going to be your biggest vulnerability. Acquiring spells and the fact that you are vulnerable to getting hit. This is where invisibility, this is where mirror image, this is where some of those other cards that allow you to completely negate damage are very, very important. The last piece with Ezren. And this took me a little while. This took me a little while to unlock, to really kind of figure out and see. And it was very, of course, frustrating at first. Ezren doesn't believe in the gods. He has his intellect, he has his mind, and that is how he is going to navigate the game. So he does not have access to any blessings. You might acquire 1 or 2 here and there in the adventure, and then you'll save it and then use it at some point. But the fact that he doesn't have any means you can't juice a roll. Now, normally the way you use blessings in a larger party, because you're up against that timer, because you're up against the blessing timer, and you have to go through multiple locations, sometimes, often, companions or followers and burning blessings will let you continue to go. We don't need to do that on the one hand, playing solo, because we're going to get through for the most part, but Ezren doesn't have that. He doesn't have that possibility to juice his dice with that. This means items become even more powerful and followers become even more powerful. There's, generally speaking, 2 types of followers. One that lets you explore, or one that lets you get a plus something to a roll, some sort of check, whether it's combat or whether it's to make a reflex or dexterity type check, or an avoidance type check, stealth type check. You're going to need to rely on those more than ever. The basic example, we see this in the base starting set, so it's not really a spoiler, the Acolyte. She lets Ezren juice and get that plus D4 to his arcane check. That's gold, not only for combat and recharging, but also for making sure you don't lose that spell, because after you cast a spell, you want to be able to recharge it, get it back in your hand. Followers become key to juicing his rolls. Likewise, there are certain items. He has the ability to carry a lot of items. We'll put a lot of pips in items and spells. But this also allows you, certain items allow you to add plus something to your roll, whether it's arcane, whether it's combat, whether it's stealth, whether it's charisma. You're really going to have to think and look from that perspective to keep track of that, because we don't have the blessings to rely on. So is Ezren one of the harder characters to solo? Yes, in the beginning it is, because he really wants to work with a group and he really wants to be a part of a supporting party member. But in that perspective, once you learn how to, like we've been talking about in the Z-Log, circumvent his weaknesses and make up for the fact that he doesn't have blessings, he doesn't have other aspects, then he becomes incredibly solo capable. And I enjoy playing him solo for one of the main reasons, because of the versatility of his spells. No spoilers. There are a lot of really, really neat and powerful spells as you move through the game. We want to take advantage of them. We want to enjoy them, and we want to see the different play styles, and as we utilize them, just how many dice can we stack on those spell cards. It gets a little bit crazy, and I find Ezren's power level, while starting off weak in the beginning, grows and grows and grows and grows and becomes very, very powerful.